My name is Sylvie Marlowe. I was 29 years old when I learned that betrayal does not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it walks into a crowded bar wearing the jacket you bought for Christmas. He laughed. You think you're the only woman I'm seeing? Grow up? That was what Adrian said to me when I finally confronted him. Not I'm sorry. Not I can explain. Not even a week. Pathetic lie. He laughed. Like my heartbreak was childish. Like loyalty was some outdated rule I had invented just to make him uncomfortable. Adrian Vale was 27. We had been together for 14 months. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, traveled often, and always had strange hours. I was a data analyst with a quiet 9-to-5 life d'Arcans. The kind of life where calendars, routine, and little habits made me feel safe. We did not live together, but most weekends were ours. Sometimes his apartment, sometimes mine. I knew how he took his coffee. He knew which side of the bed I slept on. I had a toothbrush at his place, a hoodie in his closet, and the stupid belief that we were building something real. Looking back, the red flags were everywhere. Work emergencies on Saturday nights. His phone always face down. A second Instagram account he claimed was only for professional networking. Last-minute cancellations that came with perfectly rehearsed apologies. I hate this job sometimes, he would say, kissing my forehead. I'd rather be with you. And I believed him. 2 weeks before everything exploded, I went to Murphy's Sports Bar with my friend Colton to watch a game. The place was packed, loud, warm with beer and shouting and fried food. I remember laughing at something Colton said. Then looking across the room, there was a couple in a booth near the back. The man had his arm around a woman with long, dark hair. They were leaning into each other like the rest of the world did not exist. At first, I only noticed the jacket, black leather, silver zipper. The same one Adrian wore almost every cold night because I had bought it for him. My stomach tightened. No. Impossible. Adrian was supposed to be at a quarterly sales meeting at a downtown hotel conference center. Mandatory attendance. Long night. Boring presentations. Then the man turned his head and kissed the woman. It was Adrian, and the woman was Nadia. I knew her face from old photos he had once dismissed as ancient history. His ex-girlfriend. Complicated past. He had called her. Nothing there anymore. My body went cold. Colton followed my gaze. Sylvie. Isn't that Adrian? I wanted to stand up. I wanted to walk across the bar and throw my drink in his face. I wanted to hear him panic, but something stopped me. Maybe shock. Maybe instinct. Instead, I took out my phone, zoomed in, and recorded, clear as day, Adrian kissing Nadia while I sat 20 feet away. Holding the proof of the moment my life split open. They left before I moved. I stayed until my beer went warm. That night, I went home and did something I had never done before. I became a detective in my own relationship. I found Nadia's Instagram through a tagged photo from one of Adrian's coworkers. Her page was not private, and there they were. Adrian and Nadia at the beach. Adrian and Nadia at dinner. Adrian and Nadia smiling under fairy lights 3 weeks earlier. Caption: 8 months back where we belong. 8 months. The overlap with me was 6 months. I kept scrolling, and my hands started shaking. There were older photos too. From before, Adrian and I met, which meant I had not just been cheated on. I had been inserted into someone else's unfinished relationship. Or maybe we had both been fooled. For 3 days, I gathered proof, like I was building a court case. Screenshots of Nadia's posts. Texts from Adrian about work trips. Photos he had sent me from hotel lobbies that suddenly looked staged. And then there was our shared Google Calendar. Adrian had insisted on it. For organization, he said. Every entry was color-coded. Blue for work. Green for us. Yellow for personal things. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now it looked like evidence. The pattern became sickeningly obvious. Alternating weekends, work trips that matched Nadia's dinner posts, early meetings after nights. He told me he was too tired to come over. He had not been chaotic. He had been organized. Yesterday, he came over after work. Or what he claimed was work. He sat on my couch, scrolling his phone, smiling at something I could not see. I watched him for a long second, realizing I no longer recognized the man in front of me. "How was the quarterly meeting last week?" I asked. "Boring," he said, without looking up. "Sales targets. New products. Some nonsense." "Which hotel was it at again?" "The downtown conference center." I nodded slowly. "Funny," I said, "because I saw you at Murphy's Sports Bar that night." The silence was instant. Then, he looked up. Not guilty. Calculating. "You were spying on me." "I was watching the game." His jaw tightened. "You were kissing Nadia." For 1 second, I expected him to crumble. Instead, Adrian leaned back and laughed. "So you think you're the only woman I'm seeing? Grow up." "Sylvie." Something inside me went quiet. "We were exclusive," I said. "We agreed. You assumed. You told me you loved me." "I did. And you told her the same?" He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic." "Does Nadia know about me?" His expression shifted just enough to answer before his mouth did. "No." "So, you lied to both of us." "I managed my relationships how I saw fit." The words were so cold they almost did not sound human. "Get out," I said. He stood, grabbing his jacket. "My jacket. The one I bought him." "Your loss," he said. "Nadia understands me better anyway." After he left, I sat there for almost an hour. Then I opened the shared calendar, and finally understood why he had loved organization so much. I stared at the calendar for a long time. Every colored square suddenly meant something different. Green wasn't date night anymore. It was evidence. Blue wasn't work. It was an excuse. Yellow wasn't personal time. It was whichever lie happened to fit that day. For 14 months, Adrian had been scheduling 2 women, the way someone schedules meetings. One dinner flowed into another. One anniversary overlapped another. One promise canceled out the next. The entire relationship had been built inside a spreadsheet of deception. I should have deleted the calendar, closed my laptop, blocked him everywhere. Instead, another thought slipped into my mind. A quiet one. Nadia deserved the truth. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about consent. Neither of us had agreed to share a boyfriend. Neither of us had even known the other existed. I opened a new calendar event. Title. For Nadia. Please, read. Then, I typed carefully. If you're reading this, I'm Sylvie. Adrian has been dating me for the last 14 months while continuing his relationship with you. I'm sharing the calendar because it shows exactly where he was whenever he claimed he was working, traveling, or busy. Every green entry is time he spent with me. Compare it with whatever he told you. If you want to talk, my number is below. I read it 3 times. No insults, no anger, just facts. Then I shared the calendar using the email address listed on Nadia's business profile. Before I could second guess myself, I pressed send. A strange calm settled over me. For the first time since the sports bar, I felt like I had stopped carrying his secret. Then, I sent Adrian one final message. You're right. I grew up. I also shared our calendar with Nadia. Adults deserve honesty. The typing bubble appeared almost instantly. What did you do? I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, another message arrived. Sylvie, answer me. 10 minutes later, delete it now. 20 minutes later, please. The shift from arrogance to panic was almost funny. 45 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered carefully. Hello. A woman's voice hesitated. Is this Sylvie? Yes. My name is Nadia. There was silence between us. Not style, just stunned. I've been checking the calendar, she whispered. I'm sorry. No? she said quietly. Don't apologize. Just tell me one thing. What? Is it real? It all is. Another long silence. Then I heard her breathing change. He told me he had a conference in Miami in March. He stayed at my apartment. He told me he had a family wedding in May. He came to my company picnic. Her voice cracked. He told me you were just a coworker. My eyes closed. He told me you were his ex. A bitter laugh escaped her. I was planning to move in with him next month. I'm so sorry. No. She sniffled. I'm glad you told me. We spent nearly an hour comparing dates. Every story Adrian had told. One of us fit perfectly into the lie he told the other. Business trips, late-night meetings, family obligations, emergency client dinners. Everything had another destination. Another woman, another version of himself. You know what's terrifying, Nadia finally said. What? He never mixed up his lies. I looked back at the calendar. No. I answered. He rehearsed them. Before hanging up, Nadia thanked me. Not for ruining her relationship, for giving her the truth before she made an even bigger mistake. Exactly 53 minutes later, Adrian started calling. Once, twice, 7 times, 15, 23 missed calls in less than half an hour. Then came the texts. How could you do this? You ruined everything. You're insane. Answer me. You're obsessed. This is harassment. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of woman you are. A few seconds later, another message arrived. Nadia broke up with me. Are you happy now? I stared at the screen. Not because I felt guilty, because even now, he couldn't say the words. I cheated. Everything was still happening to him. Nothing was ever because of him. I didn't respond. The next messages came faster. You destroyed the best thing I ever had. She was the one. I hate you. You're going to regret this. You manipulated her? You twisted everything. I finally typed one sentence. I didn't create your lies. I only showed them. Then I blocked his number. For exactly 11 minutes. Because another call came through. Unknown number again. I almost ignored it. Instead I answered, Sylvie. It was Nadia. I confronted him. And he denied everything. I expected that. He actually said you were unstable. I laughed once. So, did he tell you why he shared a calendar with an unstable woman for 14 months? She laughed too. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the sound two strangers make when reality becomes too ridiculous to process. He admitted one thing. Nadia said quietly, What? He said he never expected either of us to compare notes. Neither had I. That realization lingered after the call ended. Adrian hadn't relied on being convincing. He had relied on keeping us separated. As long as we never spoke. His story survived. The moment we compared realities, the illusion collapsed. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, and finally removed every photo of Adrian from my apartment. The framed picture from the beach, the concert ticket tucked inside a book, the birthday card where he'd written, "Forever starts now." I almost threw it away. Instead, I read it once more. Every sentence felt written by a stranger. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email. Subject: Please, let's talk. Inside was only one sentence. I made mistakes. But you didn't have to destroy my life. I closed the email without replying. Because somewhere between Murphy's sports bar and that shared calendar, I'd finally understood something. I hadn't destroyed his life. I'd simply stopped protecting the version of it he'd invented. The next morning, I woke up, hoping the worst was over. It wasn't. Adrian had always been charming. That had been one of the things I loved about him in the beginning. He could make strangers laugh. Smooth, over awkward moments. And somehow convince people he was the reasonable one. Now, he was using that talent against me. By lunchtime, 2 mutual friends had texted asking if I was okay. Not because they'd heard he cheated, because they'd heard I'd become obsessed with him. Apparently, Adrian was telling people I had hacked his accounts, stalked his movements, and manipulated Nadia into ending their relationship out of jealousy. I could almost admire the creativity. Almost. Instead of arguing, I sent one screenshot, the text where Adrian had written, "You're the only woman I want." Another screenshot, the shared calendar he himself had created. Then one final message. I never contacted Nadia until I discovered the truth. Believe whatever you want. But I'm done defending facts. Most people never replied. A few apologized. One simply wrote, "Wow." He lied to everyone. That was enough. Then Adrian switched tactics. An email arrived from someone claiming to represent him legally. It demanded that I stop sharing private information and remove the calendar immediately. It threatened lawsuits for emotional distress, harassment, and defamation. The language sounded impressive. The formatting didn't. I forwarded it to my cousin, an attorney. 5 minutes later, she called me laughing. "This isn't from a law firm." "It isn't." "No. Whoever wrote this copied half of it from the internet. So I don't need to panic. Not even a little." She drafted a calm response, explaining that everything I had shared was truthful. The calendar belonged to both of us. And truthful statements are not defamation. She ended with one sentence I especially appreciated. Further attempts to intimidate my client with baseless legal threats will be documented accordingly. I never heard back. For exactly one day, Thursday night, someone started pounding on my apartment door. Sylvie. Adrian. Opened the door. I stayed silent. "We need to talk." "No. You owe me one conversation." "I don't owe you anything." The pounding continued. Then another voice joined him. His friend Melissa. "Sylvie. You're acting immature." I couldn't help smiling. Interesting. The man who secretly dated 2 women simultaneously had recruited a witness to lecture me about maturity. Melissa kept talking through the door. "Relationships are complicated." "They're actually pretty simple." I answered. "Don't lie." Silence. Then Adrian raised his voice. "You destroyed everything." "No. You did that? You could have just broken up with one of us. You didn't have to expose me." There it was again. Not remorse. Only anger that the secret had escaped. They remained outside for another 15 minutes, alternating between pleading and accusing. Fortunately, my hallway security camera recorded everything. Eventually, building security escorted them out. I saved the footage. Something told me I'd need it later. The next morning, Adrian launched Phase 3, social media, without mentioning my name. He posted a long story about surviving manipulation, toxic relationships, and emotional abuse. Anyone who knew us understood exactly who he meant. The comments surprised me. One coworker asked, "Didn't you post anniversary photos with 2 different women this year?" Another wrote, "Funny how accountability suddenly looks like abuse." Within hours, the posts disappeared. That afternoon, Nadia called. He reached out to me again. "What did he say?" "He claims you fabricated everything." And I asked him why the dates matched. She paused. He couldn't answer. For the first time since we'd met over the phone, we actually laughed together. Not because anything was funny, because the excuses had become absurd. Over the weekend, Adrian tried something different. He waited outside my gym. As I walked toward my car, he stepped out from behind another vehicle. "Sylvie." I stopped several feet away. "What do you want?" "Closure." "We have closure." "No. We don't." "You cheated." "I made mistakes." "You maintained 2 full relationships." "Life isn't black and white." "No. It's actually very clear." His shoulders sagged. "I loved you." I studied his face. Maybe part of him believed that. Maybe he'd loved Nadia too. But love without honesty wasn't love I wanted anymore. "You loved being adored," I said quietly. "That's different." His expression hardened. "You've turned Nadia against me." I told her the truth. "You compared notes." "Yes. That's messed up." I almost laughed. "You know what's actually messed up?" "What?" "You expected us never to speak." His silence answered for him. Then, he stepped closer. "We were good together." "Were we?" "The concerts. The beach weekend. Christmas. They happened. They were real." I looked directly into his eyes. Were they real for me? Or were they just Tuesday and Thursday on your schedule? For a split second his mask slipped. His frustration surfaced. I had everything balanced. There it was. Not regret. Not guilt. Balance. As though Nadia and I had been appointments instead of people. You ruined it, he muttered. I shook my head. No. You ruined something that never should have existed. His hand shot toward my arm. I stepped backward before he touched me. Don't. I just don't. People were beginning to notice. Several gym members looked in our direction. Adrian glanced around. Suddenly aware of the audience, without another word, I got into my car and locked the doors. He stood in the parking lot watching me drive away. When I got home that evening, I installed a camera inside my apartment. Not because I was afraid, because I was starting to understand something about Adrian. Every time reality cornered him, he created another version of events. I wanted facts. Not memories. Not arguments. Facts. 3 days after I installed the camera, I came home from work and immediately knew something was wrong. The hallway light inside my apartment was on. I always turned it off before leaving. My front door wasn't damaged. Nothing looked disturbed. I unlocked it carefully and stepped inside. Adrian was sitting on my couch. He had poured himself a glass of my wine. He looked up and smiled, as though he belonged there. For a second, I honestly thought I was imagining him. Then he spoke. There you are. My pulse spiked. How did you get in? The maintenance guy was checking another apartment. He shrugged. I told him I was your boyfriend and had locked myself out. I stared at him. You lied to get into my home. I just needed us to talk. You need to leave. I'm not leaving until you listen. I kept my voice calm. You are trespassing. We've shared enough of our lives that this shouldn't matter. It matters. He stood and walked toward me. I've had time to think. So have I. We can fix this. No. You didn't even let me explain. I gave you the chance the night I confronted you. You overreacted. I almost laughed. I overreacted to discovering my boyfriend had been dating 2 women for months. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. He hesitated. Then came the explanation. He apparently believed would save everything. Nadia gave me stability. And me? You made life exciting. I felt nothing. No anger. No heartbreak. Just clarity. So you categorized us. I didn't mean. You had one woman for comfort and another for adventure. You make it sound terrible. It is terrible. He took another step. I loved you both in different ways. No. You loved what each of us provided. His expression hardened. You always twist my words. No? I finally hear them. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. The camera above my bookshelf captured every second. You ruined everything. He whispered. I didn't ruin anything. You compared notes. Because you lied. If you had just trusted me. I couldn't believe he had actually said that. Trusted you. You created this. No. Adrian. You created this the first time you chose deception over honesty. He ran both hands through his hair. You know what the worst part is. What? I actually had it balanced. The sentence hung in the room. Balanced. As if Nadia and I had been appointments on opposite sides of a planner. Not human beings. Not women who loved him. Just carefully managed schedules. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. His eyes widened. Seriously? Yes. You'd do that to me. You entered my apartment without permission. I just wanted to talk. You had your chance. When I started dialing, he finally understood. His confidence vanished. He grabbed his jacket and hurried toward the door. You'll regret this. I already regret trusting you. He left before the officers arrived. I showed them the camera footage, filed a report, and the officer gave me advice that changed everything. Document every interaction from now on. So, I did. Every text, every email, every voicemail, every unexpected appearance. Everything. Within days, the harassment escalated. Anonymous complaints were sent to my employer, accusing me of harassment. Fortunately, my manager already knew enough of the situation to recognize how ridiculous the accusations were. Nothing came of it. Then Adrian convinced mutual friends to invite us both to the same dinner, without telling me. When I asked directly whether he would be there, they hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. I declined every invitation. Later, one friend confessed. He offered to pay for everyone's meal if we could just get you there. I smiled sadly. He still thinks he can control the room. A week later, Nadia called again. I need to tell you something. What happened? I reported him. She explained that while reviewing everything, she discovered Adrian had falsified several work expense claims, conference reimbursements for trips he never attended, mileage claims that didn't match his locations, hotel receipts from nights he spent with one of us instead. She submitted everything to his company's compliance department. Not out of revenge. Out of honesty. The investigation moved quickly. Adrian was suspended, then terminated. Later, the company demanded repayment for fraudulent expenses. One lie had uncovered another. His carefully balanced life began collapsing piece by piece. Without his job, he lost his company car. Without the salary, he couldn't keep his luxury apartment. Mutual friends quietly disappeared. People who once defended him suddenly stopped returning his calls. For the first time, consequences arrived faster than excuses. A month later, my request for a protective order was approved. The judge reviewed the apartment footage, the repeated harassment, the unwanted visits, and the endless messages. The order prohibited Adrian from contacting me. Walking out of the courthouse, I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt lighter, not happy, free. About 2 months later, I met Nadia for coffee. It was strange sitting across from someone I might have hated under different circumstances. Instead, we understood each other better than anyone else could. She stirred her coffee and smiled sadly. You know what hurts the most? What? I really loved him. So did I. She nodded. But I don't think either of us loved the real Adrian. I looked out the cafe window. I don't think the real Adrian ever existed. We compared stories one final time. The identical good morning texts, the overlapping anniversaries, the same compliments, the same promises. He hadn't simply lied. He had duplicated an entire relationship. When we finally stood to leave, Nadia hugged me. I'm glad you sent that calendar. Suwani. Months have passed now. I'm not dating. I'm rebuilding the version of myself that believed honesty should never require investigation. The protective order remains active. Adrian has attempted to contact me twice through new email addresses. Both messages went directly to my attorney. I never replied. The last thing I heard was that he'd moved back in with his parents and was telling people he had been the victim of 2 bitter women who conspired against him. Maybe that's the story he needs to believe. It isn't mine. My story ends with one shared calendar, not because it destroyed a man's life, because it revealed the truth he had spent 14 months trying to hide. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive through revenge. Sometimes it arrives when 2 strangers compare notes, choose honesty over silence, and refuse to protect someone else's lies.